Don't stop, go get it,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of James's Corner. I am your guest. I'm your host, James Richardson, and today we have a special episode. If you know me or are friends with me or acquaintances with me, you know that when I was a young man, I had a best friend named Garrett Zimmer who passed away tragically. And today we are doing a special episode to honor his life, to honor his presence, and just to honor what he did in the world and how he affected people all around, from his friends, his family. And I think this will be a special episode. So if you knew Garrett before we get started, if you knew Garrett, had any experiences with Garrett, he had an effect on your life in a positive way, please share this episode just with friends and family, with the community of Klamath Falls. That's where we're from. And just enjoy the episode. Today, I have Garrett's mom on, Jennifer Zimmer. And it's a pleasure having you on, Jennifer. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can you just introduce yourself a little bit briefly to the audience and tell them who you are and where you're from and things like that, please?
My name's Jennifer Zimmer. I am Garrett's mom, and I lived with my family in Klamath Falls for 20 years. That's where my children were raised. And after Garrett passed away in 2014, we actually moved in 2015 up to Hermiston. And that's where we are now.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. So, Jen, I want to start in the beginning. We can get into the depths of all this stuff, and which I want to, but I want to start in the beginning, like just from a mom's perspective of raising a child. Can you just tell us how Garrett was as a child, his upbringing, some of the happy moments that you had with him? Just start from the beginning for us, for people that didn't know Garrett on a deeper level.
So he was the easiest, most mellow, laid back, compliant. He was my easiest baby. He never did a thing wrong.
Wow.
Right. Um, until he was a really sweet kid. Garrett had, when he was 2 years old, he was diagnosed with really severe asthma. And we did breathing machines at home for many, many years. But and I mean, it's much different than what you had, but he never let that slow him down or stop him. He wanted to do all the things. I was an overprotective mom. But he was a really, really, he was a very enjoyable child. He rarely threw fits. He rarely complained. He was very, very compliant. When he went to grade school, his handwriting was very neat, which totally changed later. He was really obsessive by trying to do things perfectly. And he was a very, very good son. Like, he was extremely respectful to me and very sweet to me. He was always very concerned about hurting other people's feelings. He was he had he was very awkward looking when he was, I don't know if you remember this.
Of course.
Yeah, when he was a young child, he had a problem with his teeth, and his teeth kind of like went everywhere, and they were really big, and there was this huge gap in between his teeth, and he had a speech impediment.
Mm.
And he had speech therapy for many, many years. And then, I mean, one day he just woke up and it was gone.
Wow.
But kids would tease him at school about his teeth. And I think that as Garrett grew into a pretty handsome guy, those memories of him being, made fun of at school actually made him into a much better human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
But when he became a teenager, he became pretty feisty, as you know. And yeah, I always told everybody when he turned 14, he came out of his bedroom, he had a pitchfork and horns. It was just completely different. And he could be a little challenging. there
Yeah.
was a lot that went on. The one thing though that never changed was that he was always very respectful to me, even when I was disciplining him and taking things away. Um, he was very loving and sweet to his mom.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that introduction. And the reason why, just to give people context, the reason why I'm laughing and people that know him would understand, he was a character as he got older.
What?
He became a character and he was mischievous, and we all were. We were all young, rebellious children at that time in our lives, which people can all understand, I'm sure. Um, okay, so also like I just want to add this too. Like the reason why I'm doing this, people may be wondering, like, why are we doing this? Obviously it's been 10 years. That's one thing. And also, like, as I've analyzed and watched the journey of after he passed, I feel like people forget and they don't remember. And I know people get busy in their lives and I understand that, but I just want to make sure we keep his name alive and keep him, in fresh in our minds of the memories that we had with him. I think that that's important, just to add that that's one of the biggest reasons why we're doing this, why we're having this conversation, just to keep him alive in a way that maybe we have the platform to do it. And I think that that's just something to add.
I appreciate that so much, James, because one of the hardest things for me as his mom was, when Garrett died, it was such a tragedy, and I had so much love and support. Of course, there was other sadness in our family around that time
Of
too.
course, yeah.
But then what happens is everyone else just kind of goes on.
Yes.
And life goes on, and you can't because you're stuck because that's your child.
Yeah.
And then people are afraid to mention his name because they
Mm.
think that it will make you sad.
Yeah.
When the reality is, for me, the greatest gift you can give me is to talk about Garrett.
Yes, exactly. That's
Yeah.
important. That's so important. Yeah, thanks for saying that. That's the misconception, I think, with all this. And I
Mhm.
caught that too. Obviously, it's different for me. I wasn't his mother, and I'm sure the pain that you feel is just excruciating and unbearable. But I noticed that too. It's like, okay, it happened, and then everyone kind of fizzles off and no one
Go
really
on.
wants to talk
Yeah.
about it anymore. And I've always had that in me for some reason, even 10 years later. I still try to keep the name alive. I still try to talk about it, so I think that this is important. And we'll do what we can do to keep that going. I think that that's also important. Okay, so I want to fast forward a little bit to what happened that night, if you're okay with that, and kind of the effect. Let's just start there. Can you just tell our audience what happened if you're comfortable with it?
Well, Garrett was out with friends. Um, it was December 28th after Christmas in Klamath Falls. And um, I was actually not in town that night. And so I wasn't there. But he was out drinking. He did not drive his vehicle. He got a ride from somebody else to a place, an establishment that was downtown in Klamath Falls. And then when it was time for him to go home, everybody else was gone and he didn't have a ride. And so I know that he had tried to call several of his friends, some of who, like, the ringer was off and all of that. I can get emotional to think about that because I'm thinking about one in particular.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah, you know who? Yeah, and he ended up calling a young man that he hadn't known for a long time, um, and asked him for a ride. And that young man had been out drinking and was extremely intoxicated when he came to pick Garrett up. Garrett got in the vehicle and he did not wear a seatbelt. So he didn't put a seatbelt on. And then there was another young woman in the vehicle who I had never met that also was not wearing a seatbelt. And on the way to take Garrett home to our house, it was one of the only nights that winter that there was ice on the road in Klamath Falls. I believe, were traveling at a very high rate of speed, and they went underneath the underpass where there was ice, and they went off the road. They hit a light pole, and Garrett was ejected from the vehicle. And I'm not really for sure exactly what time that was, but they weren't discovered until the next morning. They were out in the field quite a ways. I think I want to say it was about 7 o'clock in the morning before it was discovered that they were there.
Wow.
And so Yeah.
So sad. This story is just lives in my mind. I'm sure it lives in yours, but it's just I remember those days. They were awful. They were just one of the most awful parts of my
It
life.
was it was catastrophic
Yes.
for me and my family, and it was catastrophic for you kids, and for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It was I can't even put into words
Yeah.
how bad it was. Um well, thank you for sharing that, Jen. I know that's tough. I just want to ask, like, how did you like it's hard for me to fathom. I mean, I was just a friend, a very good friend, but I couldn't fathom what you guys were going through in that time, especially as parents, because losing a child is just one of the most painful things, I'm sure, in anybody's life. How did you deal with this? I know that it was catastrophic in the beginning and there was a lot of chaos right in the beginning, and even I'm sure it lasted, who knows, for a long time. But how did
Years.
you, yeah, years. Yeah, I remember a lot of it. And how did you deal with all of this? Like maybe it was just like such chaos that you didn't even think about it, or was it something that you were just like trying to get through? Like what was the process of how you went through
I
that?
think that in the beginning, there's so much trauma and shock,
Yeah.
and you're I think the shock is kind of a way of protecting your brain and your body, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember thinking that he was Garrett was special.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, truly, he really was.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Yeah, he was special. I
Yes.
mean, and I remember thinking he loved life so much, and he loved all of you.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember thinking that I chose him in life I mean, he was just joy. He really was. Even in the bad moments with him,
Yeah.
he was joy. And so I just decided early on that I would choose him in death by choosing joy. And I it's been a process,
Wow.
and I've had to really work on it. And the other thing too was that I think that when you have a tragedy like that and it's catastrophic and it's crushing, that you have to always try to remember that your love for who remains needs to be bigger than your grief
Mm,
for who has gone away.
mm,
And I wasn't always good at that, but I tried really hard. So, how we dealt with it is that how I dealt with it is that I retreated into my family and my friends who had known me for a very, very long time. And probably for about 3 years, if you weren't my family or you weren't a close friend who was with me for a very long time, you did not see me or hear much from me, really. Um, I it just was a very long process of healing. I think that for me, I was very fortunate because my daughter, Caitlin,
yeah.
she stayed with me up until the day she got married. And we did have to move, which was another very hard thing for us to do,
Yeah.
to a community where it wasn't really home. It is now.
Yeah.
And, we have, but we had to start a whole new life and we had to run a business. And we would go to work and then we would come home. I mean, this is just being honest because
Yeah.
I just know some people say, oh, just get out there and
Yeah. I
uh,
don't know. I don't know about all that. That's
yeah,
tough. Like
I
just
mean,
get
it,
out
it wasn't
there.
it wasn't what happened.
Yeah.
We came home and we we put our pajamas on and we sat on the couch and we held hands and cried.
Yeah. Of course.
I
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, what else can you do? I mean, what else can you really do at that point?
that was and it was a really long journey. But
Yeah.
I am happy to say I feel like we went through this really dark tunnel and you do come out of the other side and there is joy.
Mm.
But it took a very, very long time.
How long did it take, Jen, like in your perspective, to come out on the other end of it with joy?
Well, James, if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to tell you that I probably cried a little bit every day for about 6 years.
Yeah. Wow.
That doesn't mean I was really sad and depressed and
No, of course.
everything for all of those 6 years,
Yeah.
but um, but I, in my heart, I missed my child, and I just, I would see you, all of you kids. He had so many friends,
Oh,
and I mean, I would see all of you guys traveling and getting married and
mhm.
having babies,
Yeah,
and I'm thinking Garrett would love to have done that.
yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's very sad. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. It's so awful. And Jen, I know that like this is what, why do you, I'm sure you've asked this question. I'll try to frame it in the correct way, but why do you think that something like, I'm sure you battled with this. Why did you think like, why did you think this happened? Um,
I think, yeah,
this
I
is a tough one, but I just think, yeah. Why did you think it happened? Like, was there like, was some sort of plan for this? This is just a coincidence. This is just a mistake. Like, what was it? Why do you think this transpired?
I think that we were given free will. God gave us free will. And I
Amen.
think that unfortunately on that night that a
Mhm.
lot of people made a lot of really bad choices.
Right. Yeah,
And because we do have free choice.
absolutely.
Uh, I don't think that God just you know called Garrett home because it was free will,
Right.
um, and bad choices.
Yeah. And that, yeah, do you struggle with that part of the process of it, how it went? Like how it's just free will made bad choices. Do you ever struggle with like, where he is or like the decisions that he makes? Do you ever struggle with these questions for
I
yourself?
I I I, I know where he is. And I know, and this was one of the things that was so hard for Caitlin and I because it was really important for me when Garrett died to let everybody, all of you, because it was traumatic for all of you. And you
Oh man.
guys were, yeah, 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it was really important for me to let all of you grieve Garrett in the way that you needed to and from your perspective. But one of the things that was so hard for me was that Garrett, he loved the Lord, and there was a lot of depth to him.
Oh, he
Um,
was very, very lot of depth, a lot of depth.
yes,
Yeah.
there was a lot of depth to Garrett, and Garrett. I mean, it's on his headstone. And it says it's the shield that he drew in one of his books that I had gotten him from a Bible study.
I remember.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a shield and it had a sword in it, and he wrote in it, "No God, no nothing." And
Wow.
he did that when he was about 9 years old.
Wow.
And so Caitlin redrew it, and we put it on his headstone. Um, and so I have no question at all about where he is. He is in heaven, and somebody said to me early on that Garrett wouldn't want to come back here, and I was not ready to hear that. I thought, are you kidding me? He would have never left us. Um, but all these years later, I think that he wouldn't want to come back here.
I would agree with that actually. I would agree with that. And who maybe you don't want to tell me, but somebody told you that was what he that was the
So
assumption of.
it was someone who was it was a, there's a group called Compassionate Friends, and that had been passed on through that group.
Mm,
That it was another parent who'd lost a child,
got you.
and he was okay, he was good, he wouldn't want to come back here. And I
Mhm.
thought, what? Are you kidding? But all
Yeah.
these years later, I think that is true.
And why did that change in your mind? Why do you think that is true now?
Well, I think that in the beginning, when you're in deep, deep grief, that you miss your
Mm,
child so much. And I think too, because as you know, Garrett loved this life. He truly did. He he really loved life. And you just feel robbed that your child will never get to live out his hopes and dreams on this earth.
right, right.
And I think that you have to mourn for that. You have to mourn for all of those hopes and dreams that your child will never get to live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do
And
that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's interesting that I had that thought too, that maybe he wouldn't want to come back here. It's interesting that you say that because I've had that thought too. Because, me and Garrett were quite close. We used to talk on the phone every day. And when you say he had depth, it's so accurate because he had so much depth and intelligence to him. But sometimes in this world, when you have depth and intelligence, you struggle and have a lot of pain because the ways of this world weigh heavy on you. And he had that, and I had that, and that's what we had. We had a bond together through that struggle. And I agree with you. Like he definitely loved life, but he also struggled with the heaviness of life because he was so intelligent and he was so deep that he looked into things.
He
And
struggled. He did,
yeah,
and he struggled with some of the his personality. And if he was here, I think he would tell me it's okay that I would say that. Um,
absolutely.
but and he was open about it with
Yeah,
me even, and we talked about it. And but he was just a beautiful soul, truly.
absolutely.
I
I
mean,
agree.
he was not perfect, but
No.
he was a delight,
Yeah, but
truly.
the imperfections kind of made him delightful. It was kind of a way, it was kind of like it was part of his character and his personality that made him different. But
Yes,
he
I
was,
think.
yeah, he had such a good heart and was so thoughtful and had such good character. But he also had the other side of it too. So it kind of just made for such an interesting individual and character that everybody kind of wanted to be around and
Yeah.
everyone kind of wanted to have at their house and have it their get-togethers and be around that type of character
Well,
because he
yeah,
brought life. He brought life everywhere he went.
he did. And he was suspended from school for a day when he was like a junior in high school. And I don't even, it happened so many times I don't even remember what it was for. But I decided I'd stay home from work that day and I would make him clean our garage. And our garage, it was a mess. It
Yeah.
was, we had all the things in there. And I thought, oh, this is, he'll just be exhausted. This will be just, well, he went out. He did. He went out there. He took everything out. He worked the whole day, cleaned that spotless. And then he got so much out of doing that. And he was so proud of himself. He was, called his friends, come look at this garage. It looks great. And I'm thinking, that was depression. He enjoyed that,
Yeah, 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 exactly.
not a punishment.
That's
So
hilarious. He enjoyed organizing everything.
he did.
Yeah,
He
that's
really did.
hilarious. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Now I know Jen, after this happened, like I'm sure that, I've analyzed it over the years. Like Garrett, if to say like the least, he was kind of the glue in a sense that held your family together in a lot of ways.
Was.
And
Yes.
I think that we all kind of together, because I think we all became family that day in a certain way. Like we all got connected as a family in a way. We were all very close, but there's something that obviously brought us closer with this process. But can you just explain, like, you don't have to get into detail, but just explain the process of like how after it happened, like, did you ever have a realization of like, wow, Garrett was kind of the glue that
Absolutely.
kept all this together?
The reason for that, though, was because, I have three children, as you know. Um, Garrett is my oldest.
Hmm.
And and the children's father, and we were married 25 years, and we were very different. Brad and I were very different. I was like very, you know, how I was. I'm still that way.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
still,
exactly.
I'm still that way.
Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I'm still that way. And Garrett was Garrett was a lot like me, but he was a lot like his dad too.
Absolutely.
And then Caitlin came, and Caitlin was just a lot like me.
Just the spitting image almost.
Yeah, she was just a
Yeah.
lot like me. And then we had Devin, and Devin was a lot of rock and roll. And so Garrett, because he had both worlds in there,
Yeah,
he was able to identify with everybody in the family.
exactly.
And because he did that, um, he was like the community organizer. And I think that probably one of the worst things that has ever happened to Devin was the loss of Garrett,
Oh yeah.
because Garrett was very instrumental in helping with Devin.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And Devin looked up to Garrett quite a bit.
He did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sad. What did you learn from all this process, Jen? I know that you probably learned a lot, but is there something yeah, is there some things that stuck out specifically for you, like as you were going through this process of healing and trying to understand and wrap your mind around this? Is there anything that like stands out to you that you learned that maybe you could share with other people that maybe are going through what you have been through, or are maybe can put it in their back pocket if anything does happen in the future?
I think that there's a lot of things I've learned.
Yeah.
I think that I've been humbled in ways you can't imagine. Um, but I think too that we really can't give up. I think that if you live your life like you've been defeated, then truly you've been defeated.
Mm,
And that is something I think that is because we really did lose everything. Like when Garrett
yeah.
died, it was a complete catastrophic loss of our whole life in every way. And I just kept thinking to myself, I want my kids to someday tell their kids that my mom never gave up and she won. And when I say, I mean, I just mean winning at enjoying life and
Yeah.
loving people. And I think that I'm I'm not all the way there. I think it's something that I have to work at all the time. It is a journey.
Mm,
I am so grateful for every lesson that I have learned through this process. Um, that doesn't mean that, I give away every lesson to have my child
of course.
back. And, but also I'm grateful for what I've learned and what I've been taught. Um, and I'm grateful. I have a lot of compassion and empathy for a lot of different groups of people now because of what my children, my family, and I have been through, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. And the strength that it's given you.
The strength that it's giving me, yes. I mean, I will say that I give myself an A+ for not giving up.
I give you an A+ too for still standing, because most people that have been through that are, it can destroy people's entire lives, and they can go down and they can go down a path that they never come back from.
I think that having other children, I don't know if I didn't have my other
Mm,
children, I'm not really sure, but knowing when you go through something like that
yeah.
if you don't survive, your children won't survive, but
Yeah.
you have to. And for me, that was a big press on, you know,
Yeah.
my
That,
kids, my
that must
children.
have been very, very tough too. But you're kind of like the block, and if you crumble, they crumble in a way. So even if you feel like crumbling, you still have to keep in and get up every
And
day.
I did. I mean, I tried to keep
Oh,
it.
I'm sure.
I
Yeah.
did. I did, but and I because I think that we live in a world where sometimes people with all this motivational,
Yeah.
positive, but also let's be real.
Absolutely.
It's tough. It was hard.
Yes. And give people the opportunity to talk through their pain. Don't just tell them everything's going to be okay. You'll be all right. Just get on with it. It's like that's not really how real life works.
It isn't. We go through a lot of worse, bad things, but we
Yes.
can come out. We can survive.
Yeah. And with God too, I think God is a big part of all
That
this.
is a lot of people. That is a question that I am asked a lot: is if my faith was shaken, and absolutely, totally the opposite.
Yeah. Well,
My
just
faith,
hearing what you're saying, it's only apparent, like, because only God can give that strength, I believe.
yeah,
Like it doesn't come from anything else. Like to go through what you have been through and to come out on the other end of the fire and still have your wits and still just be coherent and just want to, like, that in itself is the strength of God. He carried you through the storm. That's what I believe, but people I don't understand how they get through life without God. I just don't really understand.
I think that the best advice that I've ever been given was by Ben Brown, and he said, Jennifer, this is a really tough one. And what I want you to do is I want you to get up every single day and I want you to give it away to God. And he goes, do it every day.
Yeah.
At the time he said that to me, I thought, oh, that's nice. But that's what I do every day. I get up and I give it away to God.
And the
I mean,
gratitude is important too. Giving all of your life to him, but also having the gratitude, even if you're in the trenches at the time, to
it's
just
true.
say, I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for this. We always have something to be thankful for. Sometimes we have to look a bit harder, but it's there. And that can change your whole mentality and mindset, right?
Yeah.
Jen, is there anything you want to add, or ask, or anything you had on your mind before we go? I know it's been about half hour. This is a good time, but I just want to know if you want anything to add, or do you have anything on your mind that you want to
I,
talk
I,
about?
I think that I would just like to say thank you to all of you for loving Garrett and remembering him. I came across a Facebook post, Michael Kelly, and it was several years ago, and it was on Garrett's birthday, I think. And he was just, "Hey, Garrett, you're one of the best friends that we've ever had, and we miss you down here every single day." And just, I almost messaged Michael and was like, thank
Yeah,
you so
yeah,
much.
absolutely.
And I mean, just talking about him and remembering him, that is truly, it is the best gifts for me. And he was very animated. He was really animated. He gave us all a lot of things to laugh about.
Yeah.
Um, he loved to make people laugh, and sometimes it was very annoying for me.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I was like, I don't think that's funny.
Yeah, no, I
Just
trust
so
me.
you
There's
know,
Yeah, oh
I
yeah.
said I don't think that's funny, and then I went into my bedroom and I laughed.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
close the door.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, of course. Well, thank you. Also, on the behalf of all of us, I know maybe people don't tell you or have the opportunity to tell you, but we just want to say thank you. I know that maybe whoever was going to watch this could agree, but just for having Garrett and being his mother and introducing him to the world and allowing us to, build a friendship. And he's had an impact on my life. Even after all this has happened, just he's always in the back of my mind when I do things. He motivates me, inspires
Well,
me. Yeah.
I every time, I mean, because you've done so well, and
Fine.
I was I mean, you're doing so well, James. I am so proud of you.
Oh, thank
And
you.
Garrett, every time you just, I see you speak, or I see a podcast
Yeah.
or anything, and I think, oh, Garrett would be so proud, because he was a big component on just wanting everyone to win. And,
Yes.
he was really good at letting other people's light shine. Um, and he would be so, so proud of you,
Thank you.
just so proud. And
Yeah, I appreciate
and
that.
so I just, and, I can attest to that. You were that kid. I had no idea that you had cystic fibrosis
Mm.
when we were, you'd be at the house and you'd be coughing and puffing on the inhaler. And I'm like, James, are you all
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I hit it. I hit it for my whole life almost.
I remember when you told Garrett, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a lot of depth to Garrett. There's a lot of depth to you too.
And that's why
Um,
we got along, I think. That was why we had a good friendship. Yeah. They don't
yeah,
make him like they don't make him like him no more, really, to be honest with you.
I feel that way. I mean, I
Yeah.
bet I'm biased. Um,
Yeah, exactly, right? The conversation, the depth, the friendship. People have a different value of friendship and a different definition of friendship. He understood friendship. And a
he
lot of
did.
people, yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that, but he did. So it's also difficult going into the world with that definition of friendship and trying to find friends, you see. So
Yeah.
that was difficult for me in the beginning, having the depth, wanting to talk. Because me and him talked on the phone every day for years, I would say.
I know.
So that
But
was a
James,
different,
what
yeah,
I've learned is
yeah,
that, I mean, his spirit is all around us.
right. Yeah.
He's with us every day. I On Valentine's Day this last year, I got out of bed and I noticed I had a Facebook memory. I can share this now. Now, a few years ago, I would have been a mess, but
Yeah.
I clicked on it and it was from Garrett from 2014. And he posted on my Facebook wall and it said, "Happy Valentine's Day, Mother. You are the only woman in my life worthy of a Valentine." I
Wow.
mean, I'm sure that he had other people that were worthy, but he knew the right things to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I sat down on the bed and I had a little cry.
Of course.
But then, I thought, how blessed was I to have a son that, loved me so much,
Yeah.
and then I had my little cry, and then I got up and went about my day, and it was a joyous memory. It was a gift.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. No, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I had a tough time, and I'm sure everybody did wrapping my mind around that whole process of what happened. Took me years to try to wrap my head around that, to be honest. And
well, and I think too,
yeah,
my message too would be don't drink and drive.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Please don't drink and drive.
Yeah, yeah, that was a weird night and a weird scenario of events. Um,
It really was.
yeah, it was weird, but yeah, it's just he's left an effect on many people's lives, as you can tell, even by his. You know what I think about this today, even at his funeral, how packed it was, how many
Yeah.
people were there. It was just I was looking. I remember like just looking around. Obviously, it was very hectic and very emotional that day, but I remember just looking around and just seeing all these people. It was almost like our whole high school was there in a way. Our whole community came out for him. And that just shows you know a man's character by the influence he has on other people, and that's that says a lot about his character in that aspect. Because I always think about that, how amazing and how crazy it was to see the turnout of people that came just to sit there. You know,
It was. And then when we came up to where Garrett is buried in Hepner,
yeah,
we were driving from Hermiston to Hepner, and my sister goes where I was raised, small town.
yeah,
Um, but my sister, she goes, Jen, I have to tell you, when we get to Hepner at the Elks Club, there's a dinner, and I I could not believe what was happening in my hometown. I mean, they had the Elks Club, there was food, and they had all these pictures of Garrett everywhere, and
wow,
I felt like um, my hometown came out to help me
yeah,
get out of
absolutely,
my. I mean, and growing up with all those people, and then I hadn't necessarily seen a lot of them for a really long time, and that is something that I will always be grateful for. And I mean, I think that one of the things that really did get all of us through it was the kindness from other people.
yeah, yeah. And then they showed up for you. You know,
They did.
that's important. They showed
They
up
did.
and they
They did.
supported you, and you need that. You need that, especially when you're going through a tragedy or something tragic in life. Well, Jen, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
I just have to say, my household, it was really busy. Um, I came onto a photo the other day of a bunch of you. I had come home from work, walked in. I don't know if you were there, but they went to Ross and bought thongs.
I don't think are you talking about with Nick, I think, and Daniel maybe that was there.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if wait,
And
was this when you guys lived in Pine Grove?
yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah. I do remember that
they
picture.
were
Yeah.
doing it for the shock value on me. I came home and they had the songs on and they were playing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I remember that. I
I tried to
remember that.
just not even look and just walk upstairs like it was an everyday thing, but
There was
there's
always
came
there
onto
was
a
always something crazy going on.
there was. And I sometimes I it was hard because sometimes
Yeah.
all those good things happened at my house, but sometimes bad things happened there that I wasn't really happy about.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but looking back now, I just have to say what an honor it was to be everybody's mom. I
Yeah.
mean, we had so many of you,
Oh,
and
it was just a revolving door.
it really was. And that now has been one of the I such a treasure for me.
Yeah.
Because it's a connection to Garrett. All of
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have made so many memories. Like those memories I have with him, they'll last forever. And
yeah,
you can't forget them because there's so much that was going on. Some good things, a lot of times bad. But the memories and the learning experience we got from that just being allowed us to be kids, allowed us to get raised in a certain way. Like I explain this to people because now I live in Los Angeles. A lot of people don't understand this. I was raised in a small town. We had nothing to do. So we got into trouble or we did mischievous things. But the memories that I have made in my childhood will live on forever. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity, even if some of them were bad. You know what I mean? Just the memories and what you learn, it builds your character and it turns you into a different type of person, I believe.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing this, Jen. I know this is, I know I reached out to you out of the blue for this, but I appreciate you doing it.
I'm
And
happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy
Good.
to talk about Garrett.
Awesome. Awesome. And again, we just did this episode to honor Garrett Zimmer and his family. And we hope that everybody that watches this shares it and also maybe has a little bit of a memory with Garrett that they can share underneath in the comments section or something like that. Just share it with your friends, your family. Try to keep his name alive and keep his legacy going for his family, his friends, and the impact that he left on us. So, Jen, I really appreciate you doing this. And yeah, I think that was a great conversation. I think Garrett would be very happy with this, that we're keeping his
I think
name
so
alive.
too. Yeah, I think
Awesome.
so too.
Well, thank you guys. And please subscribe to the channel and please share this. And we will see you guys next week.